And welcome to another episode here of Kimberley Stories on Warrangarri Radio 693 AM. I hope your week has travelled well. In our studio this morning we have got a wonderful guest who is someone that is raised here in Kununurra in Kimberley, then went away and has come back to start her own business as a filmmaking, documentary making, corporate promotional videos making. She pretty much does it all. Welcome to the studio, Vicky Biorac.
Hi, good morning, Shanka.
Vicky, you were raised here in Kununurra in East Kimberley.
Yep.
And then went away for school and worked in the city, big smoke.
Yep.
And have come back.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a decision that you regret or
not at all? No,
yeah.
It was a big decision at the time. I was living in Sydney for about 7 years, working in a career in TV and documentaries as well. And I for a couple of years at the end I wasn't happy, and I had thoughts about coming back here, but I couldn't understand why, because I'd sort of left here thinking that I wasn't going to make this my home again. Excuse me, but the desire to come back was pretty strong, and I'm so glad I did. When I actually came back, it was the best decision I made, and I love the fact that I've made Kununurra and the Kimberley my home again.
And you did mention just before that, yes, you have worked in TV and documentary filmmaking. You've had a variety of different experiences, haven't you, working in different sort of projects and fields? Yes,
I have. I never could stick to one thing, but what I really what I enjoy is obviously being part of other people's experiences and storytelling. So really, that's where my work's taken me, is to wherever I can. And a lot of the TV work I did was to basically it's like homework, to basically experience as much as I could from people who had a lot of experience under their belt, and then go away and be able to put that all towards my own work. And that's why I've got a business now, and am confident to sort of do a lot of different areas on my own, because obviously it's not that easy up in the Kimberley to have a big business, but because I've got skills in a few areas, I can sort of work on my own. We're
going to talk about your journey, but how it actually started very, very early on as a student of Kununurra District High School as a media student. And we're going to find out about that story right after this break. You're listening to Kimberley Stories here on Warrangarri Radio 693 AM. And welcome back to Kimberley Stories here on Warrangarri Radio 693 AM. I have in the studio with me today the wonderful Vicky Biorac, who is a filmmaker, a documentary maker. She does a whole bunch of other things too. Vicky, your journey actually with film and with media and with storytelling actually started here in Kununurra when you were a student at Kununurra District High School. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, it did start here, I suppose, but we didn't really have much of a media course back then. What we did have was a group of us, and we did an animation really, and I just got hooked on the whole creative side of things. And we also, for English, did some, we could use film as a way of telling our messages. So we made some, anti-drugs and alcohol and smoking messages, that sort of thing. And that, I just like the medium.
There's, looking around now, and this is, not I guess not too long ago that you were here.
No, not long ago at all. Maybe 25 years.
One of the things I've noticed about this town, you might have some comment on this, is that there are actually a number of opportunities for young people to get involved with media. There is, of course, the radio station right here, and we've got our program here with KDHS. There is obviously the newspaper. I'm not sure if they take on internships or anything like that, but of course you yourself are now running film workshops for young people too.
Yes, I do. I try and do that as often as I can. Of course, I do have a business that makes promotional videos and education and training videos for the corporate sector. So what I try and do is be able to have some time off that every now and again, and be able to also share my skills with young people who have an interest in it. We would like to do something like this early next year. So, the school's great because they've got already a media area there, and they do a lot of work, and ABC Open do a lot of work as well. And what we'd like to just be able to also share some of my skills when I'm on set doing my work, and people can come along and get a bit of experience.
So tell us about that journey as a high school age student, and if there's a high school age student listening right now and they've got interest in getting involved more with media and journalism, what were the steps involved for you? How did you sort of go from being a media student at KDHS to then, what was the next step? Talk me through that journey.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's not it's not really a straightforward area to get into, but it requires, a little bit of networking and contacts, and I think a lot of careers probably do, and really need to. It's a little bit hard at the start also to know what you actually want. So, goal setting is really important as well, to know which area you want to go, because media is a big area. So at first I wanted to do journalism, and then basically we went and did work experience at Channel 9 in Perth in journalism.
Was that before you started studying at university?
It was in Year 12 when I was at boarding school, and so my work experience in Year 12 was at Channel 9 and doing journalism, and I thought it was great. But by the end of Year 12, after I finished media studies, I thought journalism was a bit too limited for me, and I wanted to find out how actually things are made and the whole story behind how things are actually put together, and that in itself, position, people get a message, not just, the whole thing's constructed. So I really wanted to know how it's constructed so that I could tell better stories than just simply doing a voiceover or in 10 seconds getting someone's interview, because that's what news is for TV journalism. You just want a quick grab from somebody, and that doesn't really tell the whole story, does it?
We're listening to Vicky Biorac here on Kimberley Stories, Warringah Radio 693 AM. Vicky, certainly it's not just about holding a camera, is it? It's not just about holding a microphone up and, pressing record. There is a lot of research and a lot of preparation that goes into work as a media professional or a journalist or a filmmaker, isn't there? Yeah.
Yes, it's true, and there's a lot of research and a lot of writing, and really it goes back to writing, and it's just another form of writing. So you can be an author, or you can be a filmmaker, or you can work as a journalist, and the whole it's all the same in regards to, it comes back to your story and your script, and what's actually recorded is. That's where the power is. So, it's all, nothing ever is objective. It's always subjective. And I think when you learn how to make it, you also can learn about how you're going to include stories. A lot of time you have to remember when you include stories, you're also excluding sometimes other people. So you have a lot of power and you have a lot of responsibility. And so you need to make sure that when you're learning these things, that you're doing the right thing by people, but that it is not an objective area.
Tell us about Bush Magic. Is that right? Did I say it right? Bush Magic?
Bush Magic
Yeah,
Film Festival that
it.
I had. Oh, yes. Well, we ran that about 5-6 years ago now. And the idea was to have young people in Kununurra go and experience the Kimberley and be able to make a short film about their experience. And the aim of it was to create for active young people, so not being on their iPods or watching films, but making them. So being out there making them, and I had a group, and we had a festival. We brought up people from TAFE in Perth, and they got marks for their work in camera and editing and writing, and so some of that actually they could use in their future at if they wanted to pursue that as a career. And two of the boys in my class actually did decide. They also did media at school, and they did the Bush Magic Film Festival, and it inspired them, and they went to TAFE, and they're now working in the industry in Perth.
There you go, full cycle.
Yeah, full cycle.
Going from a student of media and then coming back and encouraging others to get involved as well. That must be quite rewarding for you.
It is, actually. It is rewarding. I think always giving back and having that, so it's a rewarding thing.
Absolutely. Listen to Vicky Biorac here on Warringah Radio 693, Kimberley Stories with Shanker. Right after this break, we'll come back and we'll find out a bit about what Vicky gets to when she goes to university and starts her career as a filmmaker. And welcome back to Kimberley Stories here on Warringah Radio 693 AM. We have in our studio Vicky Biorac, the filmmaker, the documentary maker, the corporate promotional videos maker, the teacher. She's many, many things, Vicky. Vicky, when you went to university at Murdoch University,
yes.
you wrote a thesis which, at the end of your studies, which won awards, got a lot of recognition, and then I guess was the beginning of a fairly diverse career in promotional and commercial television. What was that thesis that you wrote about?
Well, my career actually ended up going a different way, but I made a documentary about Aboriginal media, and that was my thesis. So we needed to have a written section as well as do a practical section to complete my honours in media. And so I based it on Warrangary Radio here, and also on other places like it around Australia, and just spoke about how media for Aboriginal people was being used to preserve language and culture, and to give Aboriginal people an avenue of representing themselves and going away from the misrepresentations perhaps of Aboriginal people in the mainstream media, which was, and 20 years ago, was a new thing. I
know that you've just stated that your career, certainly the career that took shape after leaving university, didn't really quite relate to your thesis. But the exploring of this whole notion of how a people story gets out there and how journalism carries that story is something that did actually capture your imagination and your attention for quite some time, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that really is me to this day, and it's still important in my work. So I suppose when I moved to TV, to the commercial side of things, it was more for money-making opportunities. But documentary filmmaking has always been my interest, and the love of it was to be able to tell stories from people that perhaps aren't heard in the mainstream media.
You've mentioned a little bit about the fact that you did have some experience before you started going to university in Channel 9 studios. As a student, did you get other work experience while you're studying that informed what you might want to do after you finished uni? Did you do any other sort of projects?
Yeah, well, I continued doing work experience at Channel 9, but this time I went into the camera department, and we went and shot news stories together, and so I got to see all about the technical side of things, but also what stories were considered important and what weren't. So that was very good for my studies, as well as on top of that, we actually used to have some great people, cinematographers, come to our university, Australians that actually done really well for themselves and working in Hollywood, and they did workshops with us, and they showed us how to manipulate light to be able to get better stories, and what tricks they did in their movies to create the looks. So that was also a very good experience. There was an opportunity to apply to go to the film school in Sydney, but I decided that I was more to do with real stories, and life experience was more important than to go to another school and learn the arty-farty stuff.
There is a lot of glamour in that, the media and the journalism profession for young people, or I guess for any people. The idea of being at the pulse of a big moment, being able to report on something just that's happened, or being able to travel, or being able to interview, celebrities or famous people. And I guess maybe that's why some people get into media studies and journalism. Has it been glamorous? You've been now in the profession for a long, long time. Has it been all that for you?
Yes and no. There is a little bit of that. If you work in TV, in commercial TV, it is in Sydney. There's definitely that side when you work at a TV station like 9 or 7. Everybody dresses up to go to work, and you go and meet people there who are always on TV. And I suppose there's a side where there's a lot of parties and you all hang out together, and so there is that side, and it's the same with all media. But then there's also everybody works really hard. Like, they don't see behind the scenes. The public don't actually understand, but people in the media industry work long hours, and they really put a lot of effort into what they do, especially, even like presenters, they might do 12 to 16 hour days easy.
So what was it like for a girl that's been raised in the Kimberley, has had a family close by, at least till she went to boarding school, has had a very close-knit community around her, and now she's getting through this university degree in the city and then getting into this busy career where it's very easy to become just anonymous.
A number, yeah. Well, I think I learnt that through the journey, that you just are a number. But because I've travelled a lot, like my parents, ever since I've been here. So since I was 2, we used to travel to Europe, and we used to go all over Europe, as well as my parents are from former Yugoslavia, Serbia, so we used to go back there a lot, as well as to France, a lot of different countries, and I've been to Southeast Asia and America. So travel was a really big thing for me. So leaving Kununurra and going away was actually really exciting. Like, I loved the idea of knowing what I was doing and just going and having an idea in my head and just making it happen. And for me, that just came naturally. So I didn't really have a feel that I was connected to this place at all. But it came out always in my stories. So even like when I ended up, doing something about Aboriginal radio, all my writing ended up coming back to here. So that was a real journey for me, because it took me probably up until I came back to Kununurra to actually figure out who I was and what made me tick. So that whole journey through commercial TV, it was a learning experience, because you're right, it is a number, and you don't recognise that until you start living it.
And we are going to live that journey after we come back from this break with Vicky Biorac here on Kimberley Stories, Warringah Radio 693. And welcome back to Kimberley Stories here on Warringah Radio 693, where we have in the studio Vicky Biorac. Vicky, you've just graduated from Murdoch University, and you are launching into the world of commercial television. What was your first gig? And do you remember your first experience walking into the workplace?
Yes, I do actually. It was my first job was with a production company in Darwin, and walking into it was really exciting because they had all the gear. They had everything. I'm like, wow, there's lots of toys in here. So, and they were doing stories about health messages with young people. So I was really excited about being involved in that. So I got... But, I think I realised only now, recently, maybe in the last 5 years, that it's really important to have a mentor when you come out of uni, and I didn't have that. So I kind of stumbled a little bit. I had a mentor at uni. He was a documentary filmmaker, and he was fantastic. But because I wanted to travel and leave Perth, I ended up having to try and find that somewhere else. But I this production company didn't actually give me that opportunity, and I actually felt a little bit... that I wasn't as involved as I wanted to be. So I actually moved from there pretty quickly.
Where'd you go next?
I went to Channel 8, which is affiliated to Channel 9 next door, and that was great because we had a lot more hands-on. So I got to actually do a lot of editing and work on live news. So we basically put the news stories together.
You've worked on a range of different sets, basically. You've gone from doing things like children's programming and developing content for children's programming, to working on assistant directing for Home and Away, to promotional videos for Channel 9 programs. Let's take Home and Away. Yeah, this is a popular TV show, and you're behind the camera on that, or what is an assistant director? I have no idea. Talk me through this.
I was an assistant director, so we basically worked with the actors. So the idea was to make sure that, and I did a lot of work with the actors, just with scheduling and making sure that I was a bit of a timekeeper, make sure they get to work on time, and if they don't, tell the boss. And also I worked with the extras and I directed the extras. So anything in the background moving, that was my work. You. So, go and get the cappuccino when he says, I love you, or, so you always had... I was very busy in regards to waking up at 3 a.m, had to be at work at 4, then driving the big van, which was for dress-ups and makeup, to set, which was at Palm Beach in Sydney on the beach. So it was about an hour's drive, and then 14 hours on set and then home again. So it was 80-hour weeks on the show. But it was great because we were learning how to make a drama. And really, I suppose, in my heart, I like to do that one day.
Mm-hmm. Enough Rope.
Mm-hmm.
You've credited that as a project that you've been involved with. What involvement did you have with Andrew Denson's Enough Rope?
Well, they came up here to make a documentary about Kununurra. It was part of their show to go to different communities around Australia and get stories from those communities. So I came on board and helped facilitate their time here and they had people that they wanted to interview, so I helped them find some other people to do vox pops and get the story of Kununurra out on the ABC.
Speaking about Kununurra and film, we are going to talk about a big project that you're involved with later on in the show. But keeping back with your early commercial life, another thing that you did was children's content, and go.
Yeah, it was called The Big Arvo on Channel 7, and I had a concept about children programming, and I wanted to do a series about Kimberley kids, and so I was talking to the series producer there about using The Big Arvo as an avenue to get some stories out. And we started that conversation in Sydney, and I came up here and did some stories with Columbaroo children at the remote community of Columbaroo, and that went on The Big Arvo. And then a few years later, when I moved back here, I brought The Big Arvo up here, and we actually did a story about Kununurra and Kununurra kids, and we also did a making of The Big Arvo, which was a lot of fun too.
Fantastic. We're listening to Vicky Biorac's journey here as a commercial film and television producer, director, and all the other things that she's been doing in that commercial life. I mean, how many years were you actually involved in that space in Sydney and Darwin?
I was 10 years altogether, and then I moved back here.
That's a big decision that you made. We're going to talk a bit more about that decision, that sort of change of direction altogether with Vicky Biorac when we come back right after this break. You're listening to Kimberley Stories with Shanker on Warrangarri Radio, 693 AM. Welcome back to Kimberley Stories here on Warrangarri Radio, 693 AM. Vicky Biorac's in the studio with us. She has just spent, as we're talking through her journey, she's just spent the last 10 years working as a commercial TV and film maker and producer, and she is about to make a decision in her life which is going to be very daring. She's going to take that big leap of faith as a filmmaker coming into a landscape where there aren't many filmmakers or a film industry as such. Is that accurate, Vicky?
That's so accurate.
Yeah.
But I think lifestyle was a big thing for me. In Sydney, I realised the lifestyle that Sydney was giving me wasn't what I wanted. And when I actually started thinking about what did I actually want out of life rather than just work, it brought me back here.
Real people, real stories is a quote that I've taken from you, and it's certainly one of the things that has brought you back into this space where we have a variety of people in this part of the world. We have people who do have amazing stories, like the woman that's sitting in my studio at the moment. Vicky, tell me a bit about that decision, though, that psychology of the decision to say, hey, I'm going to come home and I'm going to see what happens. Had you met your partner by then?
No, I didn't. Okay. No, I met him about 6 months after I came back.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, I came back pretty much just to experience the Kimberley again. And I know that I love the landscape. I love the people. My family are here, my mum and dad, and I really just got jaded in Sydney, and I really felt like I was losing my personality. So I really came back, really, I suppose, to find myself in a way, and just to experience real life rather than, when you live in a big city, you do tend to become a number, and it was all about work there. So I really wanted to see, have an adventure.
Be Visual Media is a project that I guess very soon emerged after you landed here. It's a company that many businesses in Kununurra are already familiar with, and certainly many community organisations in terms of your involvement with, say, the East Kimberley Aboriginal Achievement Awards, of course, Bush Magic Film Festival, which you have started and developed on your own. Has it been easy to make those relationships?
with people.
With community, yeah.
Yes, it has. Yes, there's a lot of Kununurra is really generous and a lot of community spirit. So that hasn't been difficult at all. When I came back, Be Visual Media as a name existed because I was working as an independent documentary producer and editor, and we were making a documentary back in Sydney, and that ended up being on the ABC message stick. So it was about youth from the Crocker Stedford and how they were at a crossroads in their life, leaving high school and what they were going to do next. So I completed that. So I already had the name Be Visual Media, but I wanted Be Visual Media to be an actual company rather than me freelancing. And that's why when I came up here, I thought, well, we don't have that, let's do it. And people were like, oh, what are you going to do that here for? There's no market for it. But it just sort of evolved. It happened.
If Be Visual Media has an identity, how do you see that identity? You work in corporate promotional videos. You go out and do photography for weddings. At the moment, you're busy with Christmas and taking photos with children and Santa Claus. You do a whole range of stuff with photography, video, training, a whole bunch of stuff. What is the identity for Be Visual Media as you see it at the moment? Where do you think you'd like to take that?
Well, really, the idea was just to have a creative outlet and to be able to tell stories, positive stories, and so that's where education promotional videos, and also ones that help people, benefit in life, like with education, So I think that really still is the key for the business, is to continue to do that, but to do that on a bigger scale, and also help promote the East Kimberley and, have a bigger film festival here that brings people in, very successful filmmakers that can also share their experiences with the people in Kununurra.
You talked about big and scale and promoting the Kimberley. There's probably nothing that really gets as big as Australia and the film by Baz Luhrmann. Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, all the big Hollywood hot shots came to Kununurra, and you're in the middle of it. Tell us about that experience. How did it happen? How'd you get involved? It was a phone call, wasn't it? In the middle of the night.
No, I wouldn't have been too happy about that. I like my sleep. No, it was a phone call. Yeah, I was 18 months in Kununurra already, and the business was set up, and the location.
Welcome back to Kimberley Stories here on Warringah Radio 693. We've been chatting to Vicky Biorac over the past hour, and we've been finding out a lot about this filmmaker in Kununurra. She has this company, Be Visual Media. She's worked on some fairly large projects, but she's also helped young people in Kununurra work on their projects and their interests in media, and so she's done a variety of things over her career. Vicky, what are you working on now? What's caught your imagination as we speak? What are the sort of projects that you're working on?
Well, at the moment, I'm developing a documentary about the Barramundi concert from its start in 2006 to now, and the big transition it's made and how successful it's become as a community-run concert. And also, my idea at the moment is I've been working on some government projects on the Ward expansion project in Kununurra. So they've opened up to Kimberley Agricultural Investments, and they're developing the region through farming. And so Kununurra in the next 10 years it's going to look different in 10 years' time. It's going to be it will be a regional centre, and so we would like to make a documentary about the start of the Ord the Ord Stage 1. I would love to make a documentary on people who worked on the two dams, and basically that transition from the 50s and 60s to where it is now, because we had the Prime Minister come in the 60s to open the diversion dam, and that was a really big thing for Kununurra, and we're really and it's a really interesting history. So I would love to make a documentary on that and include all the people that were a part of that, and also turn that into a short film would be nice as well. So yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, when you look at a town like Kununurra with it's only 50 years old, but yeah, as you've mentioned in the two projects that you're working on or looking at. There is a lot of history. The Barramundi concert does have a lot of history, and of course the development of the dam and the impact that it has had on this region. and then through that, Australia as a nation is certainly significant. It's something that is a story worth sharing, and that is, I guess, bringing out the storyteller in you as well, isn't it?
That's it. So I would love to go to do more of that, and also, work with the corporate sector in Kununurra and develop the marketing on the East Kimberley through promotional video and TV commercials. And
you are very passionate about the East Kimberley, aren't you?
Yeah, slightly.
The conversations that I've had with you, it's not just a business interest, it's not a business case for Be Visual Media, actually, for Vicky Biorac, the individual.
Yes.
It is a personal mission for you, isn't it, to actually be able to show to people outside our space what this space is about.
Yes, it is. It is important for me. I mean, I've done a lot of travelling and seen a lot of other parts of the world, and they're beautiful, and but this place is beautiful, but it's not recognised for being beautiful, and I think that's probably what motivates me.
I'm sure that passion is shared by a number of people in our community as well. One of the things that I guess as a filmmaker who came into a space where there weren't other filmmakers, or there wasn't actually a thriving film industry, is it a matter of being able to educate and show people what film can actually do in terms of carrying a message across?
That's actually a very, very interesting question. Yes, absolutely. A lot of people don't understand that, and it's a very powerful medium to give a message. And I just think that I love to be able to do that for people.
I've just heard on the grapevine that the ABC. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that the ABC, for instance, follows closely on Kununurra Community Noseboard on the Facebook page and social media what happens in this town. It's interesting, I guess, how the outside world looks into Kununurra to try and find out what's happening here in the East Kimberley, and the social media page is one example of how our story is told in terms of what's the pulse is in town at the moment. But it would be great, wouldn't it, to have sort of little, I guess maybe a TV station or little videos of, hey, this is what the people look like. This is what we sound like. This is what's happening.
Absolutely, yeah. We need more of that for the general public outside of Kununurra to experience what we do, and we don't have any of that sort of promotional material.
You've already mentioned the film festival idea that, the idea of trying to encourage other filmmakers, and that's incredibly sort of, I guess, generous of you to say that, I am a filmmaker in this town, but hey, bring other filmmakers in. Let's share this space. Let's cultivate an industry, and that festival, I guess, is one way that you see of doing that. Is it something that you've sort of seen work successfully in other parts of the world, Australia or regional Australia?
Oh, look, I think it's more about, once more, sharing stories through film. Tropfest, when I went to Sydney, I went to, I don't know if anyone's heard of Tropfest, but it's one of the biggest in the world now, and it started off as being a very small film festival in one of the tiny parks over in Sydney, and now it takes up a huge, massive park, and they can't fit everyone in because there's over 30,000 people that go. But that's the idea is that people love to just see short films and with really funny stories, clever stories, and that's really it. That's really what I want to have just up here. I mean, they have them down south of Perth in Margaret River and so forth. We can have one too.
Vicky, I don't know about you, but I feel like we're on the verge of maybe potentially creating like a major remote regional film festival. I mean, we could do it, couldn't we? We could absolutely kick off here in Kununurra a nationwide regional version of the Tropfest, eh?
We could.
We
could. I just need people on board.
We need people.
The whole idea is quite daunting it's obviously just quite a lot of work, but it'll be great. Look what we got to share, and what a great way to show what we have in the East Kimberley.
Absolutely. And one of the great things that we do and have in Kununurra and the East Kimberley is our wonderful local filmmaker and business owner of Be Visual Media, Vicky Biorac. Vicky, thank you so much for your time, for coming in today and sharing your story. And
you're welcome. It was nice chatting with you.
You can catch this show on this episode on Kimberley Stories' YouTube channel. There should be an episode uploaded shortly to Kununurra Community Notice Board, but if not, look us up on YouTube, Kimberley Stories with Shankar. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend, and thanks for listening. I'll catch you guys at the same place, same time, Warringah Radio, 693 AM.